Hey guys, it's Primoz from Skyrocket Your Productivity, and today I'm here with my good friend Selena Soo. Hey Selena,
Hey Primaj, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Selena is, one of my closest friends, and I've just actually flown back from New York, where I spoke at her Get Known Get Clients live event, which was this amazing conference where we got to share, with 200 students, like how, me and a couple of my friends, also Navid and Joanna, how we built our businesses over time and how we built relationships with experts that allowed us to have successful businesses. Now, during that conference, Selena actually brought up that she's going to start teaching more publicity to many business owners. And, it's things like how do you land more guest post opportunities on the top websites in your niche, or, how do you get on, podcasts like Entrepreneur on Fire, or even how you can get, maybe published in Business Insider or Oprah Magazine or huge websites like that. So I'm super, super excited for our interview today because we're going to talk about a few of those things. And, before we just dive into that, I want to, talk to you, Selena, because some of my audience might not know you yet. I know that you're like one of the best experts in terms of publicity and building relationships online. But I want to just let you introduce yourself and share with us, like, how did you even get into this publicity world? How did everything start for you?
Sure. So when I got started, I didn't really have formal training, but the thing is my biggest passion was always connecting and promoting amazing people. So I would look at people like Marie Forleo, Ramit Sethi, Danielle Laporte, and think everybody needs to know about what they're doing. And very naturally, I would connect people at that caliber to magazines, to TV opportunities, all sorts of things, and then start making a name for myself, getting these people in, great places in terms of media. And then just in general, I'd spent like the past 10 years like connecting people and also developing relationships with the media, because for me, even though I personally didn't want to put myself in the media, I knew that I want to be that person who helped other people get those big opportunities. And some of these media outlets, they have access to, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people. And I just knew how powerful that was. And they're always looking for new experts to feature, new inspirational people to share their stories with. So I worked hard to build that network. And so that's how I got started.
Okay, great. So can you bring us back to, the first moment? So you mentioned, you wanted to work with influencers, you wanted to get them out there. Do you have like a specific story of one of your first clients that you've helped with, something like that? And how exactly did it go down?
Sure. This is not so much of a first client, but a first mentor. And I'll just share this story because it is a big part of how I got started in the online world. So one day I was walking home from my summer internship. I was in graduate school and I saw Ramit Sethi on the street. And I'm trying to remember when this was back in 2011. So I was a student and he was my number one blogger and thought leader. And I remember seeing him, and I am introverted, but at the same time I knew like, this is my one chance. What if I never see him again? So I went up and introduced myself to him. And I talked about how, I'd bought Earn 1K, I had read his book, and it shared a lot of specifics. And we had a really great conversation. And he had moved to New York not too long ago, and he asked me if I was on his list for New York meetups. And I said yes. And as he started hosting these meetups, I would go there, I would connect with him, I would connect with people like Derek Halpern, his friend, and started developing my relationship that way. And then one day, Rami, out of the blue, emailed me and said, I'm redesigning my website. Here's 2 versions of homepages I've got. Do you have, a moment to take a look at it? If you're too busy, no worries. And I was in business school at the time. I was in class. I remember thinking, like, this is more important than anything I'm doing in school. And I left the classroom, locked myself in a room in the library, and got like a focus group together. And we were analyzing his website, the copy, the images, the positioning. And I basically wrote up kind of like a report and emailed to him. And he was really impressed. And so, I also feel like relationships that you have with influencers can almost become like a form of publicity, because if they're endorsing you or telling people about you, the word really gets out. And then so later, Marie Forleo was looking for someone to talk to about publicity. And she had told Ramit, and Ramit told her that we should talk. And I'd also been building a relationship with Danielle Laporte for a number of years beforehand. And I knew that she was good friends with Marie Forleo. So they both kind of worked to get Marie in touch with me. And I worked with Marie in sort of more of an informal way for a period of time and helped her with a bunch of different things. And she got on Forbes. It was her first big piece of major business media for her, new Marie Forleo brand. And, I got an incredible testimonial from working with her. And then she had, I think it was a $25,000 mastermind, but she had discontinued it. So all the people in her mastermind were like, who's Selena? Who's a person that Marie is saying is the go-to expert for marketing and publicity? And then her top clients found me, and I got more testimonials. More people were talking about me in their newsletters or on social media. So that was those were the beginning stages for my own publicity. It really came through influencers. And I can also dive into some client success stories. But I think that, for everybody listening here, it's really important to build relationships and get out there and do great work and have other people endorsing what you're doing. I feel like that's almost like the first step is working with clients and getting some successful results, or getting some endorsements and then getting the publicity.
Love it. Love it. I love how you share the story with, Ramit, who's, your mentor, my mentor. And I think it's really an awesome story of how you really went above and beyond when you could have just looked at the website, spent an hour on it. No, you went out of your classroom, you got a focus group together. You spend, a lot of time, really putting in the effort to, basically to give Ramit the best possible response. And you probably weren't even, looking to get anything out of it at that point.
No. You're so funny because you're like, oh, you could have just spent an hour. But no, he was asking for 2 minutes. But for you, your minimum is I'll just spend an hour giving my all. But yeah, no, I spent 5 hours. But yeah, it was great. And so even though Ramit's a friend and a mentor, he's not my client, but he got to know the quality of my work. And I just believed in Ramit so much that when I was talking to people in the media, I always kind of had my eye out for Ramit. So Oprah magazine, for example, they had an issue coming up where they're focusing on technology and finance. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect because Ramit has an app called Negotiate It to help you lower your monthly bills, like cell phone bills, cable bills, and so forth. And so I told them about Ramit, and he ended up getting covered in Oprah magazine. And also I met, different people, at the local morning news. And I was like, you should feature Ramit, talk, his Negotiate It app. So even though he wasn't my client, it was very fun for me to just make those connections. And I think also sometimes when you help some of the top people, whether it's for paid or for free, because I have a lot of also paid clients, of course, but, then you develop relationships with these media outlets like, oh, wow, Selena, you send such high quality people my way. And then they're even more open to hearing about, whoever I have to share. And so, I'm always developing relationships with top media people and really excited to introduce them to, a larger community of experts I'm going to be working with, which we'll talk more about later. But I think that having these opportunities are such game changers in terms of boosting credibility and just creating that excitement and buzz about your brand.
Awesome. So I definitely want to, dig into the actual publicity and how you get featured on websites like Forbes and stuff like that later on. But before that, I know that right now a lot of the people in my audience are going to be asking themselves well, that's great for you, Selena. You ran into Ramit on the street and then you over-delivered. But what if I don't have that opportunity? What if I don't live in New York and I don't run into Ramit on the street? How do I start building those relationships? What are some of the things that I can start doing right now? Let's say if I'm from Germany or Slovenia or something like that. And maybe, you can, if it makes sense, you can share some of the story. You mentioned you managed to build a relationship with Danielle Laporte. How did that happen? Because you said I built a relationship with her over time. But, for people, it's well, how did she do that? It's very mysterious. It's not really apparent.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not somebody who waits for things to happen. I find different ways to just create opportunities. And a lot of the relationships that I have, I didn't start with meeting these people in person. I mean, Marie, I got connected to over email. It was, many months later before I actually met her. I think it was probably several years after I was connecting with Danielle Laporte over email that I actually met her in person. So most of these things start out online anyways. With Danielle, this was several years ago, she had a different business called Style Statement, and it was about picking these 2 words to describe the essence of who you are. And I read about her in a newsletter. It was Ladies Who Launch newsletter. And I just sent her an email and said, I just think what you're doing is so incredible. I would love to be a helpful resource. Here are some ideas I have for you. Here are some people, if you want to connect with them, I'll be happy to make an introduction. So it was that sort of thing. And she was like, wow. And I just found different ways to add value and stay in touch. But I wasn't really attached to anything, just that, I identified someone that I could be helpful to. So that's kind of how I built that relationship. And then later on, when she was coming out with her book, The Firestarter Sessions, I said to her, does Oprah magazine know about your work? Because I would love to reach out to them. And she said, oh, yes, please. So I didn't wait for her and say, oh, what can I do to help you? I just said, here's my specific idea, but I want to make sure this is okay with you, because I didn't know if maybe someone on her team had already reached out to them. And so I wrote, a very thoughtful pitch that was super heartfelt and personal and specific. It couldn't really be ignored. And then I put together this care package. So I got a copy of the Firestarter sessions. I put it in a brown paper bag with, red fire paper bursting out, a chocolate fire chili bar, fire star tattoos, and I hand delivered it to her. So it got their attention, and they were like, oh, who's Danielle Laporte? And so that got a conversation started about her book. So, I do things like that really helps me stand out, and helps the person I'm pitching stand out. And then later, one of my clients, Alexandra Jameson, who wrote the book Woman, Food, and Desire, and kind of first got on the map by being the co-creator of Supersize Me. She had a book coming out called Woman, Food, and Desire, about listening to your body and your cravings. And so she used the same strategy, and she would send packages to the women's magazines with like different treats that they could eat that were really sensual. She even put like mini vibrators in the gift bags, and she delivered that. And I mean, that definitely got people's attention and got them talking. So, you could just send an email, and that most of the time that's great, but there may be other times where you might want to find a creative way to go above and beyond to really get people's attention.
Awesome. So, I'm hearing two things so far. The first thing is you always take the opportunity to put yourself out there. You mentioned you're an introvert. These things aren't easy for you. But on the other hand, you say to yourself, well, it's now or never, right? You meet on the street and you want to talk to him. You see, Danielle Laporte sending out an email, you would respond and get back to her. So that's the thing, just getting yourself out there and, being honest, like, hey, I really enjoy what you're doing. I want to support you, and so on and so on. And then the second thing that I'm noticing is that you're really, trying to stand out in some way. And each person will stand out in their own way. For you, it was really over-delivering for a meet, or, one of the other things that you're really amazing at is, creating these amazing gifts. Like I actually have, a gift from you that you sent me, like, which was a box of chocolates that you sent me like before I, came to your conference. And you actually put the effort to send it all the way to Slovenia, which, makes a huge, an incredible first impression. So, those are some of the ways in which you deliver value. But some of the people listening right now would be asking themselves like, well, what if I don't have the money to sell all of these expensive gifts? Or, what if I don't have any value to add right now? How can I still build the relationships with these influencers when I'm starting out?
Sure. Well, I want to share an example of, a magazine, like an influencer who's maybe a magazine editor. I think sometimes we think, oh, they're such big deal people. They know so much more than us. But we have to remember that they went to journalism school. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not experts in areas like health or business. So we're the ones who are really, the resources for them. So as an example, there's a woman I know, she works with Dr. Oz, and she's in charge of his new website, Dr. Oz Good Life. And she's responsible for, publishing 10 new stories every single day, brand new stories where they need experts for, they need fresh ideas. And she doesn't have a health background, so if you're somebody who's a health coach or has worked with some clients one-on-one, what are the trends? What are things that are coming up? What are things that people are struggling with? So you can be an incredible resource. Or you may know other people in the space that you could connect them to. I think about this woman that I know who worked at Shape magazine, and she reached out to me because she was looking for a pregnancy expert for a story. And I had a client who was a pregnancy expert, but I knew she wasn't a fit because for this particular story, they needed somebody who had a traditional medical background, who was like a doctor, versus somebody who was more kind of holistic and self-taught in this. And so, but my client had gone to this conference with these fertility experts, like a national fertility conference, and there were like 30 to 50 speakers. And so I reached out to my contact in Shape. I was like, here are some people that you could look into that would be perfect for your story. I'm happy to do any outreach or connect you to the, PR people who organize this conference. And so sometimes I won't even put myself first or my client first if I know it's not the fit. I'll just think about how can I help this magazine editor or this influential person as much as possible. And then when I have an opportunity to present something that I think will be a win-win, then I will. So sometimes you don't have to be in the perfect position. Like I was building all these relationships before I even had influential clients. I just knew that I wanted to become friends with these people. I wanted to offer value. And now when I'm in a position where I have great people to introduce to them, they really want to hear about them.
Awesome. I love it. So again, I love a couple of things that you mentioned, one, when you're talking about these people that seem, so far away, like the Business Insider editor or, Forbes editor and things like that, we have to keep in mind that these are, actual real people. They have their, daytime jobs. They don't want to respond to your emails on a Friday evening. And they also, need to do the work. They need to create these stories. It's basically what they do for a living. If you can introduce someone to them, that makes their life a lot easier, and that's how you can start building a relationship with them. And actually have, another example that might be relevant to, people in my audience. I've done a similar thing with, a Business Insider editor that I connected with beforehand. I knew she was always looking for stories of successful entrepreneurs. So there was another, person in one of the courses that I joined in Zero to Launch who was like a case study for it. And she had this amazing story. Now, I haven't ever actually talked to this person before. I kind of wanted to, but I never really knew how to start a conversation. So I reached out to this person. I was like, hey, do you want to be on Business Insider? Because I think your story is really incredible. And we didn't have a relationship beforehand. And she just said like, yeah, sure, I definitely want to be there. So I introduced them together and they created a great story. And that helped me build a relationship with both of the people. So even though I didn't have this network yet, I wasn't friends with the other person like I am friends with Naveed or anything like that. You can always look for opportunities to bring, amazing people together and create win-win opportunities. So I love that because you can do that whether you're experienced or even if you're just starting out.
Well, and I like what you said, because sometimes when people see other people getting immediate media attention, like, oh, they got a story in Forbes, they got a story in Business Insider, they think, well, there's less opportunity for me. But the thing is, these magazine editors or these online editors are looking for new stories every single day. Or maybe they're writing a story on a particular topic, but they want to feature 6 people and have a bunch of different ideas versus just one person. So I think that's why it's important to also have a community where we can all help each other out. And actually the way that I got on Business Insider was through Naveed, your friend and my good friend now, who connected me. And then after that, that led to me getting a lot of my clients on Business Insider. And now, Libby went to my event and she's really interested in stories from my community. So I do think that the relationship piece is important. You don't have to start with it, but you want to find ways to build those relationships or be a part of a community where that kind of sharing and support happens.
I love it. I love it. And, it's in the end, it's a win-win-win opportunity. Like the Business Insider editor, whoever, they win because you give them a great story to share with their audience. It gets a lot of the attention. They don't have to actually go out and find the story. You do some of the work for them. You create like links and things like that point them to the right resources, things like that. You save their time. You help your friend or, the person you want to build a relationship with. And then it's also good for you because you're actually building the relationship. So right. I love, we're not in the scarcity mentality of like, hey, there's not enough other opportunities for everyone. Because the truth is, people are looking for amazing stories to share. It's their job to create stories. So either they can find them on their own, which is going to take them more time, or you can be the person that connects them to the stories, and saves them a lot of time and, makes them look really good in front of their bosses.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked a little bit, about just building relationships, and we talked about a few specific examples in how you can do that. And, I like that we're talking about how these things work behind the scenes. Because often you would see like, oh, all of these people, they get featured on Entrepreneur on Fire or Business Insider or Forbes or whatever. Can we talk a little bit about how these things actually happen? So let's say, you knew that Ramit was working on his negotiation app. You knew that in, Oprah magazine, they were looking to, talk to someone about finance or something like that. How did the whole process of, Ramit getting featured there, how did it actually work?
Oh, that's kind of interesting because, so I saw that, so basically I found the media kit for Oprah magazine, and people can go online and type in any magazine and the word media kit. That will come up. You might have to put your name and email in, but they'll show you an editorial calendar of what they're working for each issue. And so I saw, okay, they're doing an issue on finance and technology. Ramit would be perfect. And so I emailed someone there and I followed up. I actually didn't hear back. The way that I found out is Ramit posted on Facebook, oh my gosh, I'm in Oprah magazine. And then I looked at who wrote the article. I was like, oh, that's a person I pitched. And so I emailed her. I was like, oh, hey, I'm so glad that you ended up covering it. And she was like, oh yeah, thank you so much. So the funny thing is, in that case, sometimes they don't always tell you that they're running the story. So that's how that piece worked. But other times it's different. Sometimes they're more hands-on in developing a story with you. But in this case, they just wanted to do like a feature, and they just kind of, got the information that I sent and ran with it. So that was kind of funny.
Awesome. Yeah. So, what we're getting to is a lot of these things is just like, it's as simple as somebody introduces the other person. They might join on one Skype call with you, or maybe if it's like a really high-end magazine, they might talk to you on like 10 different interviews, like Rolling Stone or something like that. But essentially, it all starts with introduction. One person connects two people together, and that's basically how you get in on most of these opportunities, right?
For a lot of them, yeah, that one was just kind of actually cold pitching. But when I was an entrepreneur on fire, I believe it was my friend Ryan Lee who connected me to John Lee Dumas. I think he just said, John, Selena is a really great person. You know, she would love to share more about you. So that got the person interested in me, but I still had to pitch myself. It's not just like, friends helping out a friend. Like you have to still have an interesting story, and so I sent a pitch kind of highlighting things about my story, my rise, in business that was particularly interesting, revenue numbers, influencer connections, interesting stories that would be fun to share on the podcast. And then I got a yes. And actually, John Lee Dumas is coming to town. I think it's next week, next Saturday. And I said to him, he told me that he was coming to New York. I said, hey, John, I would love to host a dinner party for you and bring together some interesting people for you to know. And so it's special, come to a new city and have someone host a big dinner party for you. Of course, everyone's going to want to come if it's John Lee Dumas. And so I have about 10 people coming who are really cool. And it's great. It's just like kind of deepening my relationship. And I'm always thinking about what are some ways I can add value to my media contacts. And John not only has probably the most successful podcast in the entrepreneurship space, but he also has a program called Podcasters Paradise. And last I looked, I think there's going to be 2,800 people who are podcasters who are looking to take their podcast to the next level by learning, from John. And so with, the new thing that I'm creating, which we'll talk about in a second, but it's like there's such a big network of people that can feature your story. Sometimes we think, I need to be an Oprah, I need to be an Entrepreneur on Fire. But there's hundreds or thousands of podcasts or media outlets that you could be on that could really boost your credibility. And sometimes it's important to start small. Because I know at the very beginning, I was not very good at sharing my story. I was kind of all over the place. But as I got more experience and became more confident, my interviews were stronger. So you might not want your first media appearance to be on the Today Show or something super high stakes. You may actually want to start with these smaller podcasts and gain your confidence. I think about my client, Kimra Luna, and when she first got started in week 1 of her business, she started pitching herself to podcasts. And not everyone said yes to her because she was, just getting started. But eventually people did say yes. And she got on, 10 podcasts and then would be able to say, hey, I've been on 10 podcasts. I'm a great interviewee. And sometimes people think, well, don't you need to be in business for like several years or whatever? But think about the guest posts I wrote for a Meet site on how to get the attention of your favorite expert. I didn't need to be in business for very long to talk about strategies of how to email people and stand out. So you can actually right away get a couple of press hits and then use that and leverage that to get more and more opportunities. So that's important. But also, people like John Lee Dumas are kind of these centers of influence, and he's connected to thousands of other people. And so sometimes people are like, is there like this insiders club? It feels like when you're in, it's easier. When you're not, it's harder. And the truth is there is an insiders club. But, the way to get into it, one is, you choose to sign up for programs or masterminds, or you go to events, you travel, or you just show up online. And also, you have to do the work so that it makes sense for you to be a part of this group. So, I might know someone who I really like on a personal level, but if I feel like they're going to leave a bad impression on my media contact, if they're not organized, if they're, they don't have their acts together, or they're just, aren't the kind of person who follows through, that I'm not going to let them into the inner circle and support them in that way, So I think that it is important to build relationships, but also at the end of the day, you're going to get these opportunities based on your own merit because your story is good and you know how to position yourself and put yourself out there.
Awesome. I love it. It's true for most people, when they're just starting out, maybe they should not be on Business Insider when, they've just started their business. Maybe they don't even need that kind of publicity. Maybe they don't have the story to share yet, right? And that's okay. It wasn't for me. It took years to actually get on Business Insider. But when I got there, I had a great story behind it that would really relate to people. If I said I made $300 in sales with my first product, do people really care about that? Probably not so much as he's traveling the world and so on and so on. So I think, having a part of the story is, definitely very important. Now, for those people who are, still starting out in the beginning, you said like, hey, you can start cold pitching people like Kimra did, and you can start getting on smaller podcasts or something like that just to get started. What are some of the mistakes that people make when they start doing that, that they can avoid and, drastically increase their chances when they're pitching themselves to, either a smaller guest post site or smaller podcasts?
Sure. I mean, one thing is it's important to get clear on what media outlets make sense for you. So sometimes people pursue opportunities that don't make sense, so I really like what you mentioned about podcasts, because I think for new business owners, that's one of the best places to get started, because with podcasts, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, not podcasts, for guest posts, there's a lot of opportunities. There's so much space online versus if you were in a print magazine that only publishes 10 times a year, there's less sort of real estate. And also with print magazines, they may include like an interesting quote or like a small feature, but you don't have much control. Whereas with guest posts, you can really share your ideas. I think step number one is identifying where you should be featured. And so there's a couple of things you can do. One is you could start a survey and you could ask, friends and family, or post on Facebook or in different Facebook groups, or maybe if you have a newsletter, you could share that with them and just say, I'm looking to do to do more interviews, or or to write more on these particular topics. Where are your favorite places where you, where are your favorite online media outlets, favorite podcasts and things like that? Because sometimes we think, oh, I know where I'm supposed to be. And we've got a list of like 3 places. But if you ask your audience and kind of get, dozens or hundreds of people to give you ideas, you're going to find places that you never thought of before. And sometimes these are low hanging fruits because they're not the most obvious. I mean, not everyone is pitching them, but there's an opportunity for you to be there. Also thinking about, does my friend have a blog that I could write on? Is there someone in the Facebook group that I'm a part of that just announced, oh, I've got a new podcast? Or is there a local event you could be a part of? So I think just starting small is really important and giving those small opportunities your all. So let's say it's a podcast, let's say it's a guest post, and maybe it's not the most famous site in the world, but it's still, an incredible opportunity. What I would encourage people to do is, rather than try to do a million things, just pursue a few things, do them really well, and maybe really do whatever you can to get comments on that article. So maybe you email your newsletter list and say, hey, I'm so excited to share with you one of my first guest post opportunities. I would love for you to leave a comment. And then you kind of guide them. So say, I share 3 tips. Let me know in the comments which tip you like the best. And then you kind of encourage people to write. Sometimes people might write back and say, oh, this was a great article, and just say, hey, thanks so much. Actually, would you leave that comment on the article? And just really push for people to leave comments. And then you've got an article that maybe has 30 comments on it. And then when you pitch yourself for other guest posts, you can show them like, oh, I've been featured here before, and look, we got a lot of engagement and comments, So that's how you can also build social proof, is you help create it, because when someone's looking to feature you, they're not going to look at every single piece of media you've ever gotten, every single guest post, every article, but they'll look at what you put in front of them. And so if you put something in front of them that's very well thought out, you wrote it really well, you didn't just, randomly submit it, but maybe you had friends or colleagues take a look at it, it's super strong, and then you worked hard to get a lot of comments and engagement around it, then when people look at that, they're like, oh wow, this person's a great writer and people like their stuff. So that's one strong way to build social proof when you're reaching out and you feel like, I just got started.
Love it. I really, I love what you're saying. I love how you, in one way, you go all out. You don't just, guest post, oh, it's like a small website, I shouldn't do a great job. Like from the first opportunity, you're going all out, and then you're, finding ways to leverage the opportunity to get bigger opportunities.
Yeah, and I want to share a couple more stories related to that, because I'm getting excited about it. But yeah, when I was on Ramit's blog, I worked really hard to get my newsletter subscribers to leave comments, and all my friends. And then with every comment, I would write a comment back. I'll be like, thank you so much, or really glad that you took that away. And so then the comments would actually double. And people are just looking at how many comments there were total. So I want to increase the number. So I was able to get 250 comments. And whenever, I share that guest post, I'm like, I would love to write for you. I've written other ones, like the one for, Ramit's site, got 250 comments. People are really impressed. And then when I was on Mixergy, that was a really great opportunity. Andrew Warner has interviewed a lot of top people like Barbara Corcoran and Tim Ferriss and Seth Godin. And he's a really aggressive interviewer, but he also, gets all the good stuff out of you. And I just knew that would be a great opportunity. And so, and I actually, before being on that podcast, I've been on the podcast twice. So by the time I was on there the second time, I had also worked to build a bit of a relationship. I sent him a thank you gift. I found his favorite whiskey, I asked his team members and sent that to him, and all these surprises. And I bought gifts for his assistant, just like little things. And that kind of stood out. And also, Tony Robbins had his book coming out, and I asked them if they would be interested in, me reaching out to Tony's publicist. And so I would just do little things to be helpful. And so he was really excited to interview me the second time. And actually the way that it happened, I guess I created this opportunity, is the first interview was about my networking tips. And he has 2 interview formats. So one is kind of like teaching, and the other one is like success story. And I said, I just said to him that I would love to, I'm so glad I connected with you, and, down the road would love, to see if I might be a fit for the other type of interview that you do. I was like, I know that, I'm not making millions right now, but, this is kind of my business growth. And I kind of shared my numbers, and he was like, actually, that's amazing. Let's book you for the next interview now. And I was like, oh, okay. But I brought it up, and then before the interview, right before we started recording, he said, Selena, how can I make this the best possible interview? How can I really help you with this? And so I said, well, I am launching a group program for the second time, Get Known, Get Clients. It's a $3,000 program. So I'd love to talk about that. And then I also really want to encourage people to sign up for my free gift. And so we had a conversation about it beforehand. And so throughout the interview, he was pulling out interesting stories and asking me about my program. And then we were talking a lot about my free gift. And so, a lot of people signed up from that interview. But also when I was launching my program, I, sent the interview out right at the beginning, and then also towards cart close when people were making the big decision. And I was like, for those of you that want to get to know me better, here are some of my most popular podcast interviews. And I included the Mixergy along with some other ones. And people, if they're making a decision to whether to spend the next 6 months in a $3,000 program with you, they will watch a 1-hour video interview to learn more. And there are people who told me, the interview in combination with a live webinar is what sealed the deal and got them to sign up for a $3,000 program. So there's lots of ways that you can use your media really strategically when you're launching something, or in your nurture sequence when people are first getting to know you. The first couple of emails, you can share podcast interviews or guest posts that you've written. And rather than just being like, oh, here's an article on my site, if you say, here's an article on Huffington Post, here's an interview where someone else is interviewing you, and sharing that you're the greatest and pulling out all these interesting gems, it's even more engaging and interesting for your audience. So that's kind of how to use media strategically.
Awesome. I love it. I really love that you actually brought it up, because there are so many business owners nowadays that just think like, oh, I just need media, but I don't think about how can I really use this strategically, and I love, because I actually want to talk to you more about that, about, first of all, your course, Impacting Millions, how it looks like. But then I also want to talk, about how it's different from other courses. And I think one of the ways is just this strategic approach. I love it. And I want to definitely talk about that more. So, thank you so much right now for sharing all of these useful, tips. I think a lot of these things were eye-opening even for me. Like the thing where you asked your, email subscribers to start doing, some comments on your blog. I actually had no idea that happened. And I just saw oh, this is a lot of comments, and I was super impressed. And I keep sharing that post with everyone I know that, wants to get the attention of experts. I keep sharing your post over and over again. And I can imagine it creates a really awesome impression for those readers as well.
Oh, okay. I want to share one more thing. So my interview on Mixergy was the #1 interview of 2015. It was the most watched interview. And there were people like Tim Ferriss who did interviews too. But it wasn't, see, sometimes when you look at people and you're like, wow, they're so successful, it's not an accident. It's not an accident that my interview was a #1. I planned it that way. I put it in my launch sequence. I put it in certain nurture sequences. So throughout the year, I'm driving people to the interview. I told my audience to leave comments. And so, there's just things that you can do to make it successful versus just hoping and pray that people will look at your stuff.
Awesome. Love it. Wow. I'm really happy you brought it up actually, because many people don't know that. But yeah, your interview was actually also, #1 on Mixergy. And I also remember That's really, really cool. But how did you do it? So I love that you actually, took us behind the scenes a little bit of how that's done. And, I would love to talk to you more about just how, some of my readers can, get more publicity. And one of the ways in which they can do that is by joining your new program. So first I want to just, ask you, like, why did you decide to create this program in the first place?
Absolutely. So my greatest passion is helping visionary experts, authors, coaches, business owners get more attention for their work. Because so many times, we know we're good at what we do, and our clients are like, you're amazing, and it's just like, okay, I know I can do this, but I just need more people to know about who I am. I want to reach more people. And I also want people to see me as that go-to expert. And really getting publicity and creating industry buzz around what you're doing is the way to make that happen. And so I've been working privately with people in my mastermind, but I was working with a smaller group, like 10 people at a time. And I really wanted to help more people with this because I have so much to share, so much knowledge to share, and also industry relationships, in ways I can really support this new group of people that I'm looking to help. And so I created a program. It's launching right now called Impacting Millions. And basically it's for people that want to reach thousands, if not millions more people with their work through the power of publicity. And so it's a combination of, it's publicity, but also being very strategic because, I know how busy we all are as entrepreneurs. So I don't want you to do something that you're not going to get a return on in your business. But how can you get the right kind of publicity for your business that will help fill your group programs or get you one-on-one clients, grow your email list, or if your goal is to get a book deal and reach millions, then that too. But depending on what your goals are, there's going to be a different type of publicity that you're going to want to focus on in a different order. And then just helping people, really guiding them to actually get that publicity and how to leverage it in a powerful way. So that's what the program is about. And what we're doing this year, which is really exciting, is in addition to this 90-day publicity training program, we are also including something called the Impacting Millions Insider Circle. So this is a 1-year membership that's completely free of cost for this year for people who join as charter members. And so during the course of the year, they're going to be a part of a private Facebook group where we're all going to be helping each other. So as an example, let's say somebody gets on Hay House Radio or they get a 2-page magazine spread, or, there are already people who've joined this group who are very successful, who've gotten their books in anthropology or and Urban Outfitters. How do they do that, right? So I'm going to be inviting them to kind of share almost like mini posts within the Facebook group, and then they'll answer questions from people in the group so that we can all help each other get these types of opportunities and kind of take people behind the scenes of how this really happens. So when there's a success for someone in the group, everyone else can learn and benefit and grow from it. There's also people in the media who are like, I need a health expert or a relationship expert or a business expert. Do you know anyone, Selena? I'm going to put all those opportunities, in the Facebook group for people to check out and pursue. So that's really powerful. And then also I have people that I've developed relationships with from Business Insider, Forbes, Mind, Body, Green, even Oprah Magazine. And I'm going to be talking to all of them about this group in Impacting Millions of these really incredible entrepreneurs and experts, and inviting people like that to do group calls. And, there'll be times for, like teardowns of your pitches, Q&A. Other cases, I'll be having them take us behind the scenes of what they're working on. And so I'm kind of bringing these media relationships to the group through these group calls and through group sharing. And so I'm kind of creating my own Insiders Club and Insiders Circle for people who have a powerful message or doing important work and really determined to get themselves out there.
Awesome. I think that's amazing. And, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the strategic aspect because, as I said earlier, a lot of people don't do that. They just say like, oh, how do I get featured on Business Insider, or how do I get featured on Mind, Body, Green, or how do I get featured on Entrepreneur on Fire? And all those things are great, and it's great that we talk about them and show the people how it's done behind the scenes. But the bigger question that most people should be asking themselves is like, should I even, try to get featured on Business Insider right now? Or is there actually a better opportunity for me right now that is going to, be more in line with what my main goal is right now? So I love that part. And I also love, the idea of the insider circle because, as we've talked about it earlier, a lot of these things, come up through relationships and through introductions and things like that. And pretty much, by giving the people the opportunity to join this insider circle, they don't have to necessarily build these relationships. They get to kind of skip the line a little bit. And if they have an amazing story to share, they can pitch themselves in that community. And they're already going to have a much better chance of, getting featured than just by cold pitching and competing with like thousands of emails, when they might be competing with like 10 or 20 or, whatever number of other students, which,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because some of these opportunities are going to be unadvertised. You're only going to find out about them through the group. And it's a much warmer pitch to say, hi, so-and-so, I just heard you on the Impacting Millions group call. Thanks for spending an hour sharing your wisdom. I love what you said about X. I want to follow up with this. That's going to get someone's attention. Obviously you can cold pitch, and I've done that before, but you really want every advantage you can get as a business owner. So why make it harder when it could be a lot easier?
Yeah, definitely. And there's one question that I always ask myself, whenever I'm joining a program, and I want to ask you this question as well, which is, first of all, who is Impacting Millions right for, and who specifically is it not right for? Who shouldn't join right now?
That's good. Yeah. So I think that this is kind of a weird piece of criteria, but this is just what's coming to mind for me, is you have to be someone who really believes in yourself. We all have moments where we get, scared in business because we're stretching ourselves to grow in some ways. But I'm looking for people who are determined to be visible and determined to make a difference. I'm not looking for people with one foot in and one foot out. So some people in Impacting Millions, maybe they've had their business for a while. They're looking to take it to the next level. Others are just getting started. Like when Kimra was just getting started, and she's like, what? I know I'm just in, the very early stages, but I'm going to get my message out there no matter what. Because the thing is, for me, I'm opening up my personal network. There are people who are joining Impacting Millions who are my mastermind clients who make 6-7 figures, but they want to continue working with me and being a part of the community that I'm creating. And so they're joining Impacting Millions. And I also have really early stage business owners who are joining. But what they all have in common is that they're serious about reaching a lot more people with their work, and they're going places. And I think if somebody is, in a position where there is like a huge financial struggle, there's a lot of, just stuff that they're dealing with in their life that maybe is making them feel I don't know, not in a place where they can really give this course their all, then maybe it's not the right thing for them. Because also Impacting Millions is going to help you reach more people, but you still need to know how to make money. You need to be able to have offerings for people to buy. Or, it wouldn't be good if like you're in a place where like, do I want to be a health coach, or do I want to be a relationship coach? Or maybe tomorrow I want to be a business coach. Like you want to know what you want to be known for. So I think those are the two things. You want to be clear on kind of what is the message, what is the work that you want to get out there. There needs to be clarity around that, or at least some clarity. And then also just really being determined to make it happen, because it's such high caliber people in the group. And, I'm kind of expecting that everybody who joins is somebody, maybe they haven't achieved, the same level of success as the top people, but they're treating their business like professionals.
Love it. Really love what you said, especially about believing in yourself, because you really want, if you are opening your personal network, you want to have people who are really committed and who know what they want right now. So, I appreciate you being honest with that, because maybe that's going to turn some people away from buying your program. Maybe that's okay. Maybe they'll be ready in a year or two, or maybe the program is just not right for them. But I appreciate that, because you are, potentially leaving the revenue on the table in order to make this program really amazing for everybody who takes part in that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I also want to share some of the bonuses that we're offering if we can. So just so everyone's clear, this is the people who join Impacting Millions this year are charter members. So they're getting things that other people aren't getting. They don't have to pay for. So, and we'll go into also the price of the program too, because I want people to know that. But so this year, one of the bonuses essentially is that 1 year membership to the Impacting Millions Insiders Circle. So it's a Facebook group, where you're joining a elite community of members. We're doing regular calls with the media. We're going to be sharing different media opportunities from time to time. So that's all complimentary for people who join this year as charter members and this year only. Some other bonuses we're doing is we have 2 special workshops, and these are led by media coaches that work closely with my mastermind clients. So we have one workshop, which is the messaging lab. So sometimes people have trouble explaining what they do. Either they feel like, well, what I'm doing is so unique. I don't know like the right words to explain what it is. Or other times they're like, what I'm doing it's the same thing that 10,000 other people are doing. And I really need to find a way to help myself stand out. And so I have a media expert who'll be leading a workshop to really help you with that core messaging so you feel comfortable with pitching yourself and kind of showing people who you are and what you do. And then we have another workshop, which is this story idea workshop. And of course, we cover story ideas within the course, but this is a chance to go even more in depth just on generating different ideas that you can use to pitch yourself. And so at the end of this workshop, everyone's going to come away with a long list of ideas so that they're ready basically to kind of, pitch the media. And they've got great stories that the media will love. So there's those 2 additional workshops. Those bonuses for the 2 virtual workshops, they do expire on Sunday, March 13th at midnight. So if people are thinking about the program and they're like, I'm clear that this is something that could really benefit me, encourage you to sign up by Sunday, March 13th so you can get those 2 bonuses.
Awesome. I love it. And, in case somebody wants to join your program, what's the pricing on it?
Sure. So for this year, as a charter member, the pricing is $1,999. Now, I think people know that for that price point, usually you could get maybe like a 6-week or an 8-week program. But this is different because it's not just, a comprehensive 90-day program, but you're getting my support for an entire year. So it's a lot bigger than, or a lot more than you would get from traditional programs. And we also are doing a 12-part payment plan for people who want to do that. So that is $199 per month. And I think for anybody who's really serious about getting their name out there and getting publicity and being a part of this insider circle and building relationships, $199 is something that tends to be doable. And that is, the value of what you'll be getting is so above and beyond. So we really priced it to make it a no-brainer for the right people to join this year.
And how long is the program?
So the core training is 90 days. And then the insider circle is 1 year. And then if people want to continue to stay involved, they can. And there would be, we're going to be adding more and more to the insider circle. And so we'll be figuring out kind of how we'll be pricing that. People want support, for years and years with media relationships and opportunities. But they're going to get that for free for 1 year. And there's a lot that can happen in a year.
Awesome. Love it. So, I appreciate you covering all of these things with us. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to ask you one more question. Is there something that you really, that you're really burning to share, that you wanted to share during this call that we haven't covered yet?
That I'm really burning to share. I don't think it's something that I haven't covered yet, but I think that it's just that, to take our businesses to the next level, we have to let other people help us. And so many times as entrepreneurs, we feel alone in our businesses. And the people that are getting ahead, that are getting these incredible opportunities, they're not doing it alone. They have mentors and colleagues and friends who are helping them, who are giving them advice, who are looking at their work before it goes out there, who are connecting them to people. And, it's such an advantage to have that. And so that's something that I've created, which is really unique. There's a few programs that have this kind of community component to it. And I'm so excited to create it because I know how much it's helped me in my business and in my life. And so I hope that people really understand just what a unique opportunity it is. And I hope to see some of your people in impacting millions this year.
Awesome. Yeah, I love what you've said, about reaching out for help. And, I also think, for my career, for my journey, one of the big things has really just been investing in myself and taking these opportunities as they come up. Maybe you can join next year, but next year, it's probably not going to be such an amazing opportunity as this year. Whenever you join a program in the first year, you will get some special treatment. You will get more opportunities. I know it was the same when we joined, Zero to Launch in the first year with Ramit Sethi. It was a different level, Ramit pays more attention to the people who joined for the first year than for like 17th year or something like that.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, I'm going to be paying close attention to every single person that joins this group. And I want to create a lot of success stories because that's how the community is going to grow. And I'm not just looking for 6- and 7-figure success stories. I'm looking for people who are still in their jobs or who just started their business. I want them to be incredibly successful too. So yeah, absolutely. There is definitely an advantage to joining in this very first year.
Awesome. So I do want to say, through my list, I never promote other people at all. And Selena is, the first person that I'm really doing with. And, it's because I really, really believe in what she does. I believe that she's like the best person out there when it comes to doing something like publicity training. That's why I'm so excited to be able to just share this opportunity with you guys, because I think it's the right thing to do, to share the word, to spread the message. And for some of you, it might not be the right thing, but if you feel like this is something that you want, if you want to put yourself out there, if you are dedicated, if you are an action taker, and you want to, be able to impact millions and millions of people and not just hundreds or thousands, then, I invite you to join Selena's program. And you can do that by just clicking the link that you got with this email.
Great. Thanks, Primaj. I really appreciate being here and having a chance to connect with your audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming here today and sharing all of your amazing insights. I'm probably just going to take notes right now and, think about how I can use some of them in the future. But I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone in the course.